everybody, I'm Jim. I thought it would be nice to check back in with a little book haul video. I've been in a book browsing, book acquisition mode lately, and I'm also unhauling some books, but I'll save the unhauls for another video, probably my next reading update, which maybe will happen within the next week. We'll see. But I have found some stuff at various outlets. So I went to a local used bookshop, charity bookshop called More Than Books. I found a book there, and then on another day I went to this new local Goodwill that's like super close by, and I found a couple books there. And then that same day I went over to Baldwin's Book Barn in Westchester, which is this vintage old barn filled with books. I found a couple items there. And then I also went for a long walk. I think it was yesterday, very early morning walk, about 2.5 miles, walked across town. I hit about 3 or 4 different little free libraries, and I found some stuff in those little free libraries. So I'm going to report to you my finds. We'll just briefly chat about these. It's fun to see what we can come up with at random. Anyway, let's start with this book that I'd never heard of before. It's amazing to me, for as much as I read books, and I've been reading books all my life, and I love classics, I'm always coming up, I always find new authors I discovered people I've never heard of before, or books I've never heard of by authors I'm familiar with. It's so much fun. And this one, I really have never heard of this before, but it's a nice condition Penguin Classics, and the author is Fontane. Effi Briest is the name of the novel. Have you ever heard of this book before? It's a 19th century novel. Really good condition for the age here. This doesn't appear to have been read at all. It's from 1967. I call this second series Penguin Classics. So the first series was like with the plain covers with the medallions. And then they moved to photographs, paintings on the covers with a lot of like heavy black theme, black and white, black spines. Some people refer to these as the L series, but this is a reprint. So by this point, they had moved on to ISBN numbers. So it's a reprint. It might even be later than the late 60s, but my info doesn't say that. But anyway, never heard of this, but the back cover copy got me interested in buying it. And I'm always looking for Penguin Classics, as you know. Probably the most famous German novel of the 19th century. And I never heard of it. What's wrong with me? Effi Briest can stand comparison with the great French and Russian works of the same age, like Madame Bovary. It is the story of a woman's adultery. Like Chekhov's plays and tales, it reminds us that lingering pain is more common in life than melodrama and tragedy. But the story of Effi and the Chinaman's ghost, the forest and dunes that are its setting, the stern Prussian code that makes the climax both terrible and absurd, are unique to Fontane and to German literature. Wow. And a little bit of info about Theodore Fontane. Theodore Fontane was born in Neuruppin in 1819, son of a Gascon Huguenot father and a Cervenoise mother, and was brought up on the North Sea coast of Prussia. So he's got some French background, but he was brought up in Prussia. So he's kind of known as a Prussian author. He did not write his first novel until the age of 56. So those of you who are budding writers, you haven't gotten around to it yet, there's still hope. Consequently, was able to bring to his fiction a lifetime's experience from many spheres. He was a pharmaceutical dispenser, a war correspondent, secretary to the Prussian Royal Academy of Arts, author of 2 war books, 4 volumes of travels, a slim volume of ballads, and another of impressions. His novel Vor dem Strom from 1878 is held to be a masterpiece in the genre of the historical novel. I wonder if Penguin Classics published that one. I did look this one up in my Penguin Classics book, and it's talked about. I just never really paid attention to it. A theme of the woman's predicament runs through his novels. L'Adultera, Cécile, Irangen, Solzhenitsyn, and Effi Briest. This date on this one was 1895, so right at the end of the 19th century. It's translated by Douglas Porme, and I was happy to find it at a really bargain price. So that is my one of my Penguin classics that I found. So on another day, I drove over to this new Goodwill outside of town, and it had been about 10 days since we first went. And I'm kind of curious about what the turnover rate is. So I was a little bored that day. So I'm like, I need to get out of the house. Let me drive over there. It's only about 7 minutes away. And I just wanted to see like how much the books had changed since the last time. Well, by and large, it was pretty much the same books. So now I know I don't like a 10-day check-in is probably too frequent. I'm going to push that back to two or 3 weeks and see how that goes. But I did find a couple things. Either these are things maybe I missed the first time, or they might have been new additions to their shelf. This one is a history book, and it's called Gettysburg, and it's a mass market paperback, ex-library copy. I'll have to see if I can get that sticker off. And it's actually 2 eyewitness accounts of the Battle of Gettysburg from July of 1863, the turning point of the Civil War. So you have Colonel William C. Oates, who was on the Confederate side, and Lieutenant Frank A. Hasell on the Union side. And they described their accounts of the Battle of Gettysburg. I couldn't resist that. I'm a big Gettysburg buff, and eyewitness accounts, I thought that would be really interesting to compare. You know, where were they? What did they see? What did they hear? It has maps. It has some photos and etchings. Nice, clean, mass market copy. Couldn't pass it up. And then the other one, this was kind of like a bit of a dud, but because I already have it. But it's Dark Materials Book 1, Philip Pullman, The Golden Compass. This is a larger format. The one I have is a mass market paperback. And the reason I got this was I knew it wasn't the same size, but we had recently, I think it was last Thanksgiving, I had loaned one of the Dark Materials books to a friend of my daughter's who was with us for Thanksgiving dinner, and they live in Vermont, so it's kind of like, I don't expect to get that book back anytime soon, if ever, which is fine. When you loan books, you have to be willing to like never see them again, because that just happens. And I couldn't remember which of the Dark Materials books I lent. I thought, well, maybe it was the first one. Well, I was wrong. Like I came back home, I checked, and like I already have this. So I'll probably pass this on and just put it back in a little free library. I do like the bigger size though, so there's a chance I might read that copy and then unhaul it and look for, I think it's the third one that we loaned. I can't remember the titles of the books, but The Golden Compass, I still haven't gotten around to reading any Philip Pullman, but that'll change there. So on that same day after the Goodwill, I still had like a hankering for book browsing. So I went over to Baldwin's Book Barn. I go to this old bookstore maybe 4 times a year is sort of the average. Like every 2 or 3 months, I like to pop in there and see what they have. Well, I found a couple books which are of interest. And the one is, I wasn't sure I wanted to get it, but I decided to. The Rise of Silas Lapham by William Dean Howells. It's an American author, like straddling late 19th, early 20th century. This is perhaps his most famous book. I used to have an old paperback copy of this in one of those, I think they were like called Reinhardt editions, which I never was attracted to those paperback editions. They were just like, kind of bland. And I got rid of that a long time ago. I haven't read any William Dean Howells. I do have another book by him in Penguin Classics, which I forgot the title of, but I didn't have Rise of Silas Lapham. This is a Signet Classics edition, paperback. And the date on this is copyright 1963 by New American Library. Signet Classics is like an imprint of the New American Library. And this appears to be a 1980 reprint of it. But it's using the original cover art. from 1963. And then I started doing some research on this, and I'm afraid I'm starting to get the book collecting bug again. And I'm starting to think I might want to start collecting these early Signet classics, because I really do like the cover art. There's a lot of nostalgia. And some of these old classics, these were the first editions of these classics that I read as a kid, as a teenager, in my 20s. And, you know, we'll see what happens. I'll do a separate video on that someday. If it truly seems like I'm gonna like start going after the old Signet classics. I have this nostalgia for this mass market paperback format. Part of that is fueled by the fact that like they were phasing out the mass market format, which is a really nice format. Like kind of fits in your big pocket, easy to carry around. Why do I have to get rid of these? I like trade paperbacks too, but what's wrong with a lowly mass market paperback? But anyway, I started reading The Rise of Silas Lapham the other night, and I really liked it. I like the voice. I think I'm going to like keep going with it. I'm only about 20 some pages in, but it's so far I'm on the hook. So yeah, I'll report more on this after I finish it or make some more progress. And then again, a lot of my used book buying is driven by nostalgia, like just admittedly. So but there's a story behind this. So I did an Oscar Wilde video. It might have been my latest video about the play Salome, and I looked at 2 different editions of it. Well, I was wanting to do some Oscar Wilde research, and I had a memory that the play Salome might have been in my old Norton Anthology of English Literature Part 2 that I had in college. But anyway, I had this memory of like, I wanted to read their bio of Oscar Wilde, and because these Norton anthologies, they do a good job of like, you know, kind of telling you all about the author and their major works. And sometimes I just don't want to have to look that up online. You know, where do you start? I guess you go to Wikipedia, you do it, you know, you go other places. But lately, I just more and more into print books. Well, I thought I still had that old Norton anthology. I do have the Norton Anthology of English Literature or British Literature, English Literature, Part 1. I have that. I never got rid of it, but apparently I got rid of Part 2. It wasn't in the best condition, and we've been through purges before, and during purges, like you get rid of things that you might regret having gotten rid of. These Norton anthologies, they're thick, they take up a lot of shelf space, so you have to be selective about what you keep. Well, anyway, I thought I came across this book. There it is. What is this? The 5th edition? 5th edition of the Norton Anthology of English Literature, Part 2. So this takes you from the Romantic period, roughly, up to the 20th century, about the mid 20th century, and this is very close to what I used to have. I probably had the 4th edition because it's not exactly the same. It didn't have this sort of cream color. It was like all dark blue all around. Same, I think this is the same cover art though. And when I looked at the table of contents and publication data, it's really close to my vintage copy that I used to have. This, I think, was a 1986 printing. Yeah, 1986. And the 4th edition was 1979. That's probably the edition that I had. And when I took that British Lit Survey course in my 2nd semester of my freshman year, that would have been 1983. It would have been spring of 1983. So this is about 3 years after that. That's close enough. It's pretty much the same set of works. So they did have Oscar Wilde in here. They didn't have the play Salome. So I'm not sure the old edition I had Salome either. But they talk a little bit about it in the bio, and I enjoyed reading their information on it. So the need to research Oscar Wilde kind of led me to like want to have this anthology again, and also for other authors. And yeah, it just didn't seem right that I didn't have part 2. So now I have it. And yeah, I'm glad to have it. There's a great selection of works in here. A lot of bang for your buck with these old Norton anthologies. And it didn't cost much at all. Maybe $5, $4. Good deal. All right, we're not done yet. We have a little bit more to go. So on this long walk I took yesterday for exercise, I found some little free library stuff, which was pretty cool. First is, lo and behold, an Oscar Wilde book, Serendipity Calls again. I've just read Salome. I have other works by Oscar Wilde in Penguin Classics, but I didn't have this Penguin Classics edition of De Profundis and Other Writings. I've probably pretty much read everything that's in this volume. It's got some poetry in here. It has De Profundis, which is one of his most interesting works, and The Soul of Man Under Socialism, an essay. What else is in here? The Decay of Lying, Ballad of Reading Jail. So yeah, it's a nice sampling of Oscar Wilde's work. And let me read you the back cover copy. I have nothing to declare, Wilde once told an American custom official, except my genius. A good part of that genius is evident in the essays and poems included in this volume. There's the intellectual genius of The Soul of Man Under Socialism, in which he clearly foresaw the dangers of economic bureaucracy and state worship. The Wilde socialism meant liberation and individuality, not enslavement. Then there is the emotional genius of De Profundis, the long, introspective, and often hostile letter he addressed to Lord Alfred Douglas from prison. Remember, he was put in prison for being gay. He had this relationship with Lord Alfred Douglas, and I think the story is when Lord Alfred Douglas's father got wind of it, he called Wilde a homosexual. Wilde sued him for libel and lost that case, and then was punished for being homosexuality, which was kind of illegal back then. And he spent a couple of years in jail. Hard labor. De Profundis is very confessional and bitter and passionate, and it's really worth reading. And then there's the poetical genius of the Ballad of Reading Jail, in which Wilde's generous nature could movingly express for another's misery the sorrow he found it hard to express for his own. Okay, so I was really happy to, this is what I call third series Penguin Classics, when they went from the all black wraparound covers to like more of this yellowish cream theme. And these are really nice editions too. Yeah, pretty cool. That, you know, read Oscar Wilde, made a video about Oscar Wilde, and then lo and behold, I found an Oscar Wilde book in the little free library that I didn't have already. All right, that's a couple more little free library finds, different little free libraries I stopped at. This one, well, I recently read the One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and I found another book by Solzhenitsyn called Cancer Ward. This is a very famous book by him. The date here, it's a novel, and it's he had won the Nobel Prize by the time this edition came out, translated from the Russian by Nicholas Bethel and David Berg. And it looks like it's a 17th printing around 1972. Mass market paperback again. This was published by Bantam. And I used to see this all the time in the bookshops when it had been recently published. It's called the Complete and Unexpurgated Edition of the highly acclaimed Bethel Berg translation. Also includes Solzhenitsyn's stand against censorship in his own words and his world-famous letters to the Congress of Soviet Writers. The curious thing about this is nowhere on the cover, the inside cover, or any of the blurbs does it tell you what the novel's about. But I think it's about a cancer ward. I'm not sure the protagonist actually has cancer, but yeah, so I can't tell you much about this book other than it's probably going to be pretty depressing. And, you know, would you want us to be seen like on the subway reading a book called Cancer Ward? Like, yeah, it's like, of all the books you could be reading, but it's probably pretty good stuff. And I'll let y'all know more about it if I actually read it soon. And I dipped into like the first chapter, and it looked like it might be good, but you know, who knows when I'll actually read it. But it was cool to find it, because I don't really see a lot of Solzhenitsyn out and about anymore. And then last but not least, coming back to this theme of like lending books and borrowing books, I found this really good condition trade paperback of George Saunders' Lincoln in the Bardo. We used to have this in hardcover. My wife bought it and read it. She's a pretty big George Saunders fan. I like him too. And I actually had met him because he was a visiting writer at the college I work for. And more on that for another day. I have some stories to tell. But like we actually saw him read in Harrisburg at an event. And yeah, he's a good writer. He's like a super nice guy. He's been cranking out a lot of books. His star has risen in the last 10, 15 years. He's become one of our major authors. And so we had lent the hardcover to a friend, and I'm not sure, I don't think we got that back. It's not in my library database, my spreadsheet that I keep. If we did get it back, it's maybe in my wife's office at work. But she doesn't think we got it back, which is fine. Like, we're not, you know, this is to be expected when you loan things. Like, you don't see people for a while. You forget you even borrowed it. You forget you even lent it. And, you know, it's water under the bridge. But I picked this up just in case we didn't still have it. And I thought, well, if we have the hardcover, I'll just like take this back to the Little Free Library. But turns out we didn't have it. And, you know, we were kind of happy to get it. I haven't read this book, so maybe I'll read it soon. This seems to be a little bit of a historical novel. February 1862, with the Civil War less than 1 year old, President Lincoln's beloved 11-year-old son, Willie, lies gravely ill. In a matter of days, Willie dies and is laid to rest in a Georgetown cemetery. Newspapers report that a grief-stricken Lincoln returns alone to the crypt several times to hold his boy's body. From that seed of historical truth, George Saunders spins an unforgettable story that breaks free of its realistic framework into a thrilling supernatural realm, deploying a kaleidoscopic theatrical panorama of voices, living and dead, historical and invented, to ask a timeless question. How do we live and love when we know that everything we love must end? That's a big question. Yeah. Looks like not very long at all. You know, I might give this a shot before the summer's over. We'll see. Man Booker Prize winner too, so it's got the seal of approval. New York Times Book Review, best books of the 21st century. Not sure whether that matters much, but they liked it too. Anyway, that's the set of books. Let's stack them all up. Yeah. Have you guys found anything recently? Let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books too. It's always fun to read your words of wisdom and your questions. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Peace out.